Hi, folks. Welcome to Follow the Leader, a podcast focused on telling character-driven stories through the use of GM-less tabletop games where you can all take the lead. You can find us on Twitter at FTLcast and at FTLcast.com. We also have a Patreon at patreon.com/FTLcast. Today we're playing things Eldritch and Terrifying by me. For those of you who are new to this game, here are the basics. There exist many terrible creatures beyond our mortal ken, which prowl the universe looking for new things to conquer, to own, to devour. They lurk beyond the edges of our plane, but that doesn't mean they don't see us. They covet our world. They want to take it as theirs, but there is a locked door between their plane of existence and ours. The way to overcome this is simple. Convince someone on the other side to open the door and let them in. I'm Dora, and you can find me on Twitter at HarpyDora, and you can find the games that I've written, including this one, on itch at harpydora.itch.io. And my pronouns are they, them. Playing with me today we have...
Hi, I'm Kales. You can also call me Mac. You can find me on Twitter at Citadel of Swords. You can find my games at citadelofswords.itch.io. You can find the writing that I do at paradoxicalrenegade.com. That's on my Twitter, so just go to... I say it every time, and then I'm like, I'm not even going to try and spell it. Just go to my Twitter, and you'll find it there. And my pronouns are also they, them.
Our lines, things we absolutely do not want to see, are homophobia and transphobia, racism, sexism, anti-Semitism, violence against children and animals, sexual assault, domestic violence or intimate partner violence, and unwanted pregnancy. Our veils, which are things we're fine with addressing but will just fade to black on, are steamy situations, graphic descriptions of bodily harm, terminal illness, and plagues.
This game may contain body horror and possession of people. I'm gonna say straight out that it's probably going to be non-consensual possession. If that changes for some reason, we can always re-edit in a different content warning, but that's kind of what I'm thinking will happen at this point.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of wiggle room for addressing various forms of consent in that, so...
Yeah, I'm just, it's not gonna get shown on screen, probably, so it's gonna seem at least to be non-consensual possession from an outsider's perspective, so
yeah,
it's worth mentioning.
Yep, definitely.
Especially since I have a weird thing about people fucking with other people's memories that I have no idea where that comes from, but it's a thing. So I would like to say it.
I mean, it's reasonable. Haha, trauma brain.
Haha, trauma brain.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, so... if any of that is not your cup of tea, don't feel bad for just turning this off. Go listen to a different arc that you enjoy. And otherwise, if you're all cool with that and want to go on this adventure with us, let's get started. Woo! And this is where the spooky theme goes. Okay, so, despite the fact that I wrote this fucking game, I, haven't played it, since, 2018?
Neither have I, so we're in the same boat.
Yeah, so, this is fun, this is good. This is a game about eldritch terrors and temptation. It places an emphasis on extra-planar entities trying to use an alien skill set to interact with a human in an appealing manner. It's meant to be a horror game first and is intended to let you explore the intersection between the terrifying and the seductive. I'm not going to lie. The internal title I had for this game for a very long time was Eldritch Horror Dating Simulator.
It's good, is the thing. I mean, I will say that one of the major relationships of FTL rose out of a game of things Eldritch and Terrifying, so... Or one of my major FTL relationships, anyway.
It's good, is the thing.
The thing is, it's good. But we're not hitting the button on the dating part of that this time.
No. Which, is weird for me, but it's cool. It's cool.
It's good. It's fine.
Yeah, it's gonna be good. So, the first thing that we need to do is we need to choose our setting. And according to the rules, it could be a fantasy setting, modern day, steampunk, blah, 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 blah. The only thing that matters is obviously that we agree on when and where this is going to take place. And,
hey, Dora!
Hey, Mac.
Where are we gonna set this game?
Oh, I don't know. Have you ever heard of this place called the City of Gulls?
Oh, that sounds really interesting. Why don't you tell me more about it?
So, for new listeners, we have a recurring setting here on FTL that we've dubbed the City of Gulls, and it's a settlement in a green post-apocalypse. A sort of Magitech green post-apocalypse. It's about 200 years post a devastating war between, magic and technology that annihilated...
And some divine intervention.
Yeah,
You'll find out about that soon.
Yeah. It is a setting that is near and dear to our hearts. The main things to know going in are that this world is kind of feral in a lot of ways. There's a lot of overgrowth. There's a lot of megafauna, a lot of what could be considered humanity's achievements, skyscrapers and things like that lie in ruins. And the City of Gulls is, in this setting, the largest human settlement that we as players and as listeners are aware of. There might be bigger settlements elsewhere, but who fucking knows?
Yeah. And the City of Gulls, actually, and I feel like we haven't said this since those episodes came out. The City of Gulls was actually, we took the name from The Sundered Land by D. Vincent and Meg Baker, which was the first game that we ever played in this universe. And the City of Gulls is actually written into those minigames as a setting place, and we just never renamed it. Not that it's a fancy name or anything, but I kind of, every time I think about it, I go, I should remember to bring up the fact that it is, in the Sundered Land as the setting.
Yeah, and it's, see, the problem is, Vincent Baker just came up with a dope as fuck name.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, like I said, it's not it's not particular... Vincent Baker, I'm so sorry, I don't mean this in the way that it's coming off. It's not a particularly imaginative name. It's not like we named the place Westeros because we were playing the Game of Thrones RPG. We named it the City of Gulls, and then we populated it with gigantic seagulls. So, I mean, it's not the worst. It's we're not committing, we're not plagiarizing or anything, but it is hard, because I do want to acknowledge that, and I have to remember to acknowledge it more. And that's why it's we need to come up with another name for this city, but also, what's doper than the City of Gulls? Nothing.
Yeah, and I mean, the gulls are already just, kind of woven into the fabric of where we're at anyway. So.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Remember how we mentioned megafauna? So, you've got bear-sized seagulls, and at one point, about 70 years ago, there was also a blue whale-sized seagull that descended upon the city.
And got taken out by a giant.
Yep.
Gotta love it. You can hear more about that story in Arc 33?
33. Yep.
33.
Oh, wait, no. It might have been 34 when it went out.
Oh, it was 34. It's arc 34.
We did some number crimes.
I would highly recommend that. I mean, we're gonna try and keep this as close to being standalone as possible. However, I would highly recommend, before you listen to this episode, or these episodes, I don't know how long this is gonna end up being, that you go back and you listen to arcs 15 and 24, because this game will directly tie into the events, especially of 24, and it will probably still make sense, but I am gonna say some shit, that I talk about in arc 24 a little bit, and it will make just a tiny bit more sense. So,
it's good stuff.
It's all really good stuff. But like I said, I'm going to try to make this standalone, but this is going to be this is a tie-in episode, so
yeah.
This is not non-canonical.
Yeah. All right. So now that we've got our setting, the next thing that we should talk about are our characters. So this is typically meant to be a 2-player game. There is a 3-player variant. We're not playing that today. We're doing the vanilla 2-player standard rules.
If you want to hear the 3-player variant, you can subscribe to our Patreon.
Yep. So there are 2 characters, the human and the terror. And it's the human's job to react to the horrifying things that are happening around them that are instigated by the terror. And based on that, the human rewards either favor or revulsion to the terror. And terrors are the extra-planar Eldritch entities that claw at the boundaries of our world, scrabbling for a way in. Mac.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell us about your terror?
So, I am playing someone called Zephyr. Zephyr is ostensibly a ghost. Your character does not know Zephyr's true name. Well, okay. Your character knows Zephyr's true name. That was a bad sentence. Your character knows Zephyr's true name. Your character does not know Zephyr's former name or the name Zephyr.
I almost said legal name.
Your character only knows the summoning name that they had burned into their memory upon fleeing a certain location, which we'll talk about in a second. So I'm playing Zephyr. Zephyr is a humanoid terror. Their adjectives are fickle, cold, and savvy. One of the things that Dora says, it's important to determine what supernatural abilities your terror may possess and what you would do should you be allowed into our plane. You may also want to consider how savvy your terror is with mortals. Just remember that even the most savvy terror will still frighten a mortal as often as not, as well as add details to how your terror would look if it were to manifest its true form. So, for the sake of the listening audience, who may have forgotten, Zephyr is a ghost, formerly known as Annabelle Lee. Formerly known, this is the summoning name that Dora's character had, is Our Love, It Was Stronger by Far Than the Love of Those Who Are Older Than We, because I am a slut for an Edgar Allan Poe reference when it comes to this girl. Zephyr themselves manifests pretty shapeless, pretty formless. They don't have a face. They don't really have a way of communicating. And depending on their ability to interact with the environment or what they're thinking about, they can more closely resemble Annabelle, as she was when she was a mortal. But she is no longer a mortal. She is now a mess. She is now an entity. And I'm saying all of this out loud because, like I said, I talk about it in Arc 24 a little bit, when summons... I did it again! Dora, would you like to talk about your characters and stuff? You're gonna have to do a lot of bleeping.
You know what? I like that, actually. Now that I know how to bleep things, I am happy to bleep things.
It's fun.
So, I am going to be playing the human, and my human's name is Marius. Thank the gods for small favors. They use they them pronouns, and their adjectives are severe, intelligent, and foolhardy. Their look is that they're short, kind of like the 5'3" range, willowy and pale. They have long brown hair, kept in an elaborate braid, dark eyes, and sharp features. And they wear the kind of, I'm imagining them as like flowy robes of their station as a mage of a place known as Anukar, which unfortunately for them was sacked by a bunch of cultists, and they are the last mage of Anukar, and they have the summoning name of a ghost burned into their brain.
Well, well,
you know.
Said ghost. Hello.
So one of the things that when creating a human that you're supposed to do is you choose a flaw or weakness that the terror might exploit. This is most likely some sort of dissatisfaction with yourself or the world around you, but could also be something along the lines of greed or revenge. Typically, this is not something that the human player shares with the terror player, because it's more something that should come out in play that the terror player could potentially pick up on and exploit. But since that doesn't make for good audio, and also since, Zephyr's summoning name is burned into Marius's brain,
this is a two-way street, people.
Yeah.
And people who are and folks who are not people, I don't mean to assume.
Fair. So the flaw that Marius brings to this is their heedless thirst for knowledge.
Well, luckily for everyone, that is something that Annabelle always shared. When you talk about this next point that you have written, do you want to give the recap of what happened last time we saw Marius?
Yeah. So, the last time we saw Marius, they were decently settled in to a reclaimed old library in the city of Gulls. They were part-time trying to educate the youth in the area.
5 youth, to be exact.
5 whole youth.
5 whole youth.
And, well, actually, I don't know, one of those youth would probably punch them. Well, anyway. I'm just imagining, like, a teenage soul punching Marius in the solar plexus.
I was not even putting Soul in this picture. I was just thinking of the 5 children from Echo.
From Echo, I know, but, like, that's just...
It's a very good image, is the thing.
They deserve it.
I know they do. Marius is canceled squad president. Right here.
Yep. So they, educating some of the local youth, but also doing some research because the city of Gulls has a bunch of weird shit going on, and some of that shit only happens in the dark. And so one of the last times we saw Marius, they were messing around with some darkness flavored magic, shadow flavored magic.
It was just straight up darkness, y'all.
Yeah, and so the next thing that you want to consider about your human is how they feel about the supernatural or the occult. Obviously, Marius is a mage. They spend a lot of time studying the occult and the supernatural, but their views on it are in some ways very clinical and very scientific. They like They like the research, they like experimentation, they like trying to figure out how to make things reproducible. So.
Yeah. I also really like this next part that Dora has in the game, which says, you are encouraged to explore the effects neurodivergence may have on your interactions with these terrors, as well as delving into how gender, race, and queerness may inform your reactions. Just remember to respect your fellow players and be mindful of your portrayal of sensitive topics. As a neurodiverse, genderqueer person, hello, not going to talk about the race thing because I'm white, Dora's white. That's not our place. But I don't think it really is going to become a thing anyway here, really. It is one of our lines, but it'll still have an impact. I think a lot about how Annabelle uses she, her pronouns and Zephyr uses they, them pronouns because Zephyr is just a formless ghost, but you know. You know. It's a vibe.
Yeah, and the main reason that I put that in there is just because the horror genre especially has
it's fucked!
Yeah, it has a lot of tropes that can be used by marginalized people to explore their identities or that have been wielded against marginalized people, and as somebody who deeply enjoys horror, I like the freedom to play with those tropes to...
Let's talk about how most monster movies are use their monsters as metaphor for disability.
Yeah.
Plot twist, this episode is now Film 101.
Yeah. And you know, monsters tend to be queer-coded in a lot of ways. You know, things like that where it's meant to encourage you to examine your relationship with these horror tropes and how these horror tropes could be used against people and try to subvert them.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. Okay. So Dora, here's a question for you.
Yes.
Are we going to re-show the summoning scene itself?
I don't think we're going to...
I'm cool with going in either direction. If we do re-show it, we will probably end up retooling it, which I have zero problem with, because Lord knows it's been a year since we recorded Arc 24, and we don't remember exactly what it is that happened, and I could probably stand to rejig some of the stuff that I did as Zephyr and how all that worked, because that was kind of spur of the moment, because I wanted to do that reveal.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't want to do it, we don't have to do it either. Like, I'm fine either direction. That's why I'm asking. But if we don't redo it, then we need to say what happened.
Yeah. Part of me wants to redo it because, you know, revisiting that would be a good idea. But, you know, there's the part of me that's like, oh, but if we retcon it, then that's inconsistent. And it's like, bitch, no, this is games. We can retcon what we want. What matters is...
How much shit have we retconned in the time that we've been doing this?
I know. The other thing that I was concerned about is, like, that does sort of, if we do revisit it, although, I mean, I guess Death of the Author, you know, that does kind of prescribe one of the scenes for us, unless we want to do that as kind of like a prologue.
I mean, I also don't have a problem with prescribing that as a scene, because I think that tying into what I was saying about the haunt works really well.
Okay. Cool.
So I don't have a problem with prescribing that as a scene. It makes me have to do less work for trying to figure out how this stuff is gonna go.
Fair. So since we've got our setting and our characters, we're basically able to start play.
One more thing. Sorry, Dora. One more thing. This also works out because then people don't have to listen to Arc 24.
Fair. But, you know.
It's just an added bonus. They should listen to Arc 24, but if they don't, like, this can stand on its own.
Yeah.
I like things standing on their own.
Yeah. So, the reason I was talking about prescribing a scene, the terror gets 5 scenes with the human. The human establishes the scene by describing where they are and what they're doing, and then the terror will respond by using one of their moves, which, you know, you're not supposed to say, this is the move I'm using, but it's basically to give you just sort of some guidelines for the fiction. there are a couple of moves that any terror type could use, but there are also moves that apply only to humanoid terror types. Either party can end the scene. Incidental characters can enter the scene as needed, but it's always supposed to be about the interaction between the human and the terror. And with the permission of the human, some harm may come to them, whether it's bodily, emotional, or psychological, but much or all of the harm must be undone by the end of the scene. So I don't think we need to go into all of the moves.
Nah, I'll talk about them as I do them.
Yeah. I think we're pretty much good to go. Right. Yeah, since it was like a year ago, gosh, was it really like a year ago when we did 24?
Yeah. When did it get released? September. Oh, it was released in September, but I think we recorded it in July.
Oof. Yeah, I think you're right.
I mean, it's also just, like, generally been a while since we've kind of gone back to this. Like, we did Echo, but that was, like, in a timeline that was set before, and time's fucked anyway, so you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah. Okay. So, since we're going to use the first scene as kind of establishing, I don't remember why. Oh, okay. I do remember. As soon as I started trying to
Were you gonna say you don't remember why Marius went to go summon Zephyr?
I was about to say it, yes.
Because I remember. It's because they're an idiot.
Well, I mean, yes. Yes, they are perhaps not the wisest.
Brightest? Yeah.
They are perhaps not the wisest bulb in the shed. But yeah. It was basically because they decided that they were going to try to find a way to stop the goddess of death. And so who better to ask about the goddess of death than a ghost?
Yep.
So our scene opens with I'm imagining, so like I've been playing a super too large amount of Animal Crossing, like many people in this day and age.
We're recording this in May, by the way.
Yeah, literally the first day of May.
I'm sure that people are playing tons of Animal Crossing still when this episode comes out. However, we are recording this in May. So
yeah, happy International Workers' Day, everybody. Don't cross a fucking picket line and don't be a fucking scab.
Don't be a scab.
But I'm imagining like there's this really cute round carpet that you can get that's got like some magic looking sigils on it, and it's really cute, but I'm kind of imagining something like that where like there's, you know, maybe a carpet that Marius has painted, or maybe not even necessarily a carpet, but like a cloth that they've unrolled that has like runes inked on it, and then candles at like the four corners, you know, the 4 points of the compass, and there's definitely incense and smoke, and they speak Zephyr's summoning name. Our love, it was stronger by far than the love of those who were older than we.
So, the move that I'm using is... Can I use 2?
Yeah.
Okay, because I think that the imprint is gonna get left, but this is absolutely the physical manifestation move. So the physical manifestation says, you create a form on the physical plane that is a small extension of yourself. This physical form must align with your true form on the other plane. This form may touch and manipulate physical objects, but you cannot touch the human without their consent. And the 2 points are, this may be used to speak directly with a human, and there's some tactics that Dora offers me. And I'm just gonna come right out and say that, after this, there will be an imprint left on the library, which is a haunt. This is a special, so the physical manifestation is just a move that you can make, and this is a special move that the humanoid terrors have. You create a spectral, semi-autonomous form that lingers in a particular place and often performs repetitive functions, completing a circuit through a room, repeating a phrase, etc. The haunt may take whatever form you wish, but it cannot physically interact with the environment beyond moving small objects. Once a haunt is created, it is permanent unless the terror states otherwise and may be utilized in future scenes. But I'm gonna save that one for later, because right now this is just the physical manifestation. So Zephyr's there, and they are pretty formless, I would say. They're not transparent. They're like colorless, but they're not quite transparent. It's very weird. It's kind of disorienting, I think, to look at them directly. Also, they don't have a face. Yet. I think you get the sense that they will, but that it is possible to, I don't want to say pressure, but that's the best word I can think of, that it's possible that they could form a face if you hit the right notes.
I think Marius, I don't think using the summoning name of a ghost that has been burned into your brain is exactly the smoothest thing that you can do, and so they're probably like visibly shaken as it is. And I don't know if we ever established that if this was the first time. I feel like this was the first time that Marius ever used Zephyr's summoning name.
Yeah, I think so.
And I mean, if it wasn't, it is now.
Sure is.
So, I think Marius looks up into Zephyr's, well, where Zephyr's face would be. Because I'm kind of imagining Zephyr maybe partially having coalesced out of the incense smoke. And I feel like part of Marius didn't exactly expect it to work. And so
oh, buddy.
So they're like, who are you?
Zephyr's head just Zephyr's a kind of head just tilts. And you get the sense that if they could say anything to you, they'd be extremely disgruntled. Because they just kind of gesture to themselves. Because I think the two-way street thing with the name, that's not a psychic connection. Or at least it's not one yet. It could be, maybe. We'll find out.
Yeah, play to find out what happens.
Play to find out.
I don't want Marius to go through asking all the obvious questions, because I feel like they even though they may be thinking the obvious questions, they only allow themselves asking an obvious question out loud once.
God, I hate them so much.
They're the worst. I think, oh jeez. Oh jeez.
What are they gonna do?
Oh.
I love when you do that, Dora. I love when you do that.
It's just that they're the worst, and so they're going to address Zephyr as, alright, I will endeavor to call you older than we. And
nod. It's true.
Yeah. You've come from the other side, and I have need of your knowledge.
I think that warrants kind of a pause, because I think Zephyr's fairly frenetic, just in general in terms of motion. It's hard to not have a physical form for a really long time. But I do think that gives them pause, and they kind of, look. Marius gets the sense that they're looking at them, but there's no face yet, still.
After a moment of bearing the weight of Zephyr's quote-unquote gaze, I think Marius, straightens their shoulders a little, and I feel like we had an epithet.
I don't think we ever got that far.
Did we? Okay.
For Zephyr?
No.
Oh, for Marius?
No.
Oh, for her.
Yeah.
I think it was just her. We've just been calling her for a long ass time.
Yeah. I feel like there should be another epithet.
I mean, you're right, but...
How do we feel about She Who Whispers?
That's very good. I had something for Violet that now I can't remember.
I want to say it was Bellringer.
Yeah,
maybe.
It was something along those lines. It was the one who calls, something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
I wrote
definitely...
it down. If I didn't write it down, I've re-listened to that part. I can just go scrub through again. But something like that. She Who Whispers is good.
Yeah, so I think Marius says, I need to know what you know about She Who Whispers.
She is called the Bellringer. Wild. Okay.
Well, Anya was listening to the episode where Violet got introduced.
Yeah. I just remember saying something about I am the one who calls, but I don't remember the exact words that I used, so that's fine. So when Marius says her name, one eye opens, and then a second one, and then a third one, and then, I think as an afterthought, a fourth one. And none of them blink at the same time. So none of them kind of blink at the same time. And they are all just kind of blinking at Marius. And one of them, you know how the eyes crinkle when someone raises one eyebrow?
Mm-hmm.
You get the sense that that's happening. Even though there's no eyebrows to be seen. Actually, maybe there's one, because in the picture there's one eye that's in the correct placement.
Mm-hmm.
And it does still have an eyebrow, and I think there's one, and it kind of goes up into the lower lid of one of the other eyes. It's very weird. It's very weird.
I think Marius, it's obvious that Marius has to spend some effort on not recoiling, because it's this is definitely unsettling to them, despite, the things that, they've been through up until this point in general. What with, the attack on Anakar and fleeing and arriving in the city of Gulls and all of that. This is still pretty unnerving, especially because it's it's not every day that you come face to face with a ghost in general. But they're super not wanting to let on that they're disconcerted, so they just kind of press forward with I need to know how to foil her.
There's this weird twist in the lower part of Zephyr's face. And here's where psychic bullshit happens. Because I don't think that Zephyr's quite figured out how to make a mouth work yet. But Marius gets the sense that Zephyr is saying, It's not in these exact words, it's a sense that this is what they're trying to say. But basically Zephyr is like, you want to foil she who whispers, mistress of death? You have some lofty aspirations if you think you want to best her.
God, I'm just imagining that Marius, like, just has, like, an indignant cat look on their face. And they say, her cultists caught me flat-footed once, and I will never be caught by her in such a way again.
Now there's a smile. And it's very, very weird. Because it's a smile, but it's like a twisted one. Like, it's like the smile of someone who's forgotten how to. And Zephyr says, well, I can't really fault you that. But she's pretty crafty. Possibly why her cultists caught you before. What is it you want? Let me rephrase. Why? Is it just vengeance? Because I don't think that's it.
I want knowledge and understanding, and the specter of the possibility of her presence is enough to cause people to try to put a stop to my research. I'm only going to be allowed to continue if I can guarantee that her eye not fall on our humble settlement, should I continue.
Well, that's asking for a lot. And they kind of pull some of their hair from nowhere and kind of, you know how when you like pull your hair down from like it being up and it just kind of sweeps over one shoulder?
Mm-hmm.
It's like that, except the hair wasn't there before.
Now I'm just imagining that gif of Elsa during the Let It Go sequence where she flips her hair and it clips through one arm.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think Marius is a little too incensed for the oddness to sink in, and they just say something like, I am the only one in this city who can appreciate the potential lost knowledge, and I will do anything to recover it, and if that means I must stay the hands of death, I will find a way to do it.
You're not.
I'm not?
I'm standing right here. And the smile looks a little more real now. There's much of who I was in you. You know, I bet if we really put our minds to it, we could do great things together.
All right. Older than we. What do you propose, then?
You keep doing your research. And if you need me, just call. And I think this is the point at which kind of... What's that movie where you see like the spectral form of someone kind of peel away from their back to like hover over them? This happens in a lot of movies, but it's something like that. And this is the haunt.
Okay. I suppose I have no choice but to do as you ask, then.
There's like a couple of slow blinks, and then two of the eyes close, and it almost looks like a person's face.
Marius suppresses a shiver and kind of like drops their gaze to the incense where, you know, the source of the smoke, and they say, I will contact you again when I learn something new.
When they look back up, Zephyr is gone. The shade is still there.
Is the shade, like, visible to the naked eye, or is it just a presence that they can feel?
It's visible, but only in the dark.
Nice.
And I think Marius also has the name Zephyr in their head. And the kind of, like, the reminder that, like, to use someone's true name, even a piece of it, is dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And they would do well to remember. Because, haha, just because they use the summoning, the true name of a ghost doesn't mean that it's out of their brain.
Yeah. Cool. So I think that's scene.
That's definitely seen.
All right.
That was a long boy.
Yeah. Cool. So when ending the scene, the human must consider how they feel about what's just happened and reward either a token of favor or a token of revulsion, depending on whether they feel positively or negatively about the scene. I think Zephyr's going to get a point of favor because, yeah, things are kind of weird and unnerving / uncanny, but there's the promise of knowledge on the horizon, so
Love that.
yep. So by this point, Marius has been banned from experimenting with darkness.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think what Marius could have learned.
It doesn't have to be that. I mean, it doesn't have to be something where Marius has learned something, right?
Well, I'm trying to decide, it's like, is this something where Marius, like, consciously calls for Zephyr, or is this something where Marius is doing something else and Zephyr, like, approaches Marius?
So we can do both over the course of this game because we have 5 scenes. Well, 4 now, but we have 4 whole scenes. So I think it depends on what you want to start with.
So let's do a scene. Maybe it's a few days later, maybe like a week later. And Marius isn't on, like, 24/7 surveillance or anything like that, right?
No.
So I think maybe Marius had been perfecting a darkness spell so they could go to the temple that basically only appears in pure darkness to investigate that without it having to be completely pitch black night out. So they could research it whenever they felt like. But Sable and the Peony, put a kibosh on their research, so instead they've just been, like, carefully charting the moon phases and cross-referencing it with weather patterns, and so they pick a night to go to the area that the temple, quote-unquote, appears to, at the very least, make some basic observations. And so it's, it's a ways kind of outside the heart of the city. It's very dark. I think that it's kind of like patchy clouds, like it's a new moon, but like there's still places where sometimes you can see glimpses of stars up overhead, even after they douse their lantern. And like they're using a regular lantern and not like a mage light or anything because they don't want to risk drawing any sort of unwanted attention to themselves. And like I'm imagining like there's this erratic wind blowing in from the coast, whipping their hair out of their braid and like blowing, like, how when it's really windy and the clouds just move really fast, like that above. and that's where the scene starts.
Very good. So I'm going to use the move Terrible Omen. You manifest something in the physical realm that is not your own form. This may be a flock of malformed birds come to talk to the human. It may be trees that bend and sway in a menacing way to hurt the human somewhere else. Omens may not physically interact with the human and must respond to whatever action the human takes. It is said that this move is good to warn a human away from a course of action. But I think that it's not super clear what's happening here, because I think that there's a chill that falls over the area where Marius is waiting. And Marius is waiting, right?
Yeah, they're like waiting for the cloud cover to be complete so that they can, try to take some measurements of the temple as it appears.
Mm-hmm. And I think that I love the example that you give here of this flock of malformed birds. But I don't think it's super clear that they're malformed, because it's very dark outside. Because it's nighttime. And I think that there is a cluster of, in the background, like behind Marius, the forest of carnivorous trees. Something yells suddenly, and a flock of birds just, you know how there's a bunch of ravens sitting in a tree and they all fly up all at the same time, and you're like, how the fuck is there still a tree underneath all those birds? It's like that. All of a sudden, this fucking flock of ravens just appears. And most of them scatter around, like, they're like kind of like, there's so many of them that it's hard to see their movements, or that it would be hard to see their movements, even in like full daylight, but they're like staying in one place. Like Marius like can watch them and like wait for them to disperse, but they're kind of covering the last of the sky and blotting out the last of those stars because they're just staying put. And a couple of them come and perch on a bush or on a rock or on a tree or something like nearby where Marius is.
Clarifying question. You said something just kind of yelled in the carnivorous forest. Did it sound human? Did it sound animal? Well, I guess more importantly, would Marius be able to tell the difference, I guess?
I was going to say the answer to the question is yes. You don't know what the fuck that was. You have no idea what it was. Is it one of those things where Marius, like, turns around to see if they can see, and when they turn back, there's just, like, 3 birds?
Yeah, I don't think Marius yelps, but, yeah, they definitely, like, whirl around to try to see if they can see anything, because it's instinct to, like, look at something to try to figure out what's going on, even though it's the middle of the fucking night, and there's no moon, and you can barely see stars. And then they turn back, and I actually think it would be kind of cool if, like, they turn back and they can kind of, like, sense that the birds are there through, like, hearing the feathers rustle, but also, like, the sounds are coming from places where, like, there would not normally be perches, because, like, you'd mentioned, some of the birds might be, blocking out the, few stars. So, the birds may be perching on the temple as it manifests.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
And I think that definitely puts Marius in a bit of a predicament. They're just kind of, like, frozen because, they know that this is what they've come for, but, what could something be coming, and weighing they do some calculations in their head, weighing, like, the chances of these circumstances being recreated against, like, what could have, their knowledge of what could have potentially caused the noises they were hearing, and then they decide that they're just going to sort of edge closer to where they hear the rustling feathers, because they're certain they can defend themselves if they need to, but the chances of them being able to get this sort of similar opportunity again anytime soon are relatively slim.
Mm-hmm. Do they get close enough to, like, how close do they get to the temple?
I mean, they're not the wisest bulb in the shed, but they are also not the kind of person who's just going to willy-nilly go into the temple, especially when there's the possibility of there being starlight later that could cause the temple to not exist. But I do think that they kind of, like, how when, you're in the dark and your eyes haven't adjusted, or there's no other light, and you just kind of, like, shuffle your feet without quite taking them off the ground, so that way you can, like, make your way forward without hopefully falling into a hole suddenly or stubbing your toe. Or is that just me?
No, yep, I feel that.
Okay. I was like, wait a minute, maybe this isn't a universal experience. Oh, shit.
No, I feel it.
That's kind of what Marius is doing before, like... So, like, the way I always imagined the temple was I kind of imagined it as, like, having several you know how, like, some buildings are kind of raised a little, so there are some steps up to it, like, all around the outside of the building. It's not just, like, steps up to the front.
Yes.
I kind of imagine it like that.
Yeah.
Where they eventually, like, encounter the bottommost step that leads up to the building. So they get close enough to touch it with their toe.
Okay, so, yeah, that's good, because I was wondering if they would be able to see the raven that's on the steps.
Well, I mean, they wouldn't be able to see it, but
they'd know it's there.
Yeah.
Because I think the key is that there is a raven that is on the steps, and it hops up, and there's, like, the sounds of little feet.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how's that Foley work?
I mean, I can hear it over Discord, so I'm sure it shows up on your waveform.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it does, but I'm like, how's it sound? Does it sound like little, what's the bird? Claw talons? Sound like little talons on stone?
Yeah.
It's fingernails on, paperboard. So, there's the sound of little talons on stone. Like, kind of hop, 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 hop. And then there's, like, this sound like a knock. And a pause, and then there's a sound like a bell.
I'm glad you said that there was a sound like a bell, because I was about to say, who's that knocking on my chamber door?
I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
So you wouldn't have seen this, but what happened was one of the ravens went up and knocked on the door. And that's where the knock came from. The bell, that's something entirely different.
It's funny because it's like, Marius did that mental math before shuffling up to the temple, but I don't think they were prepared for the possibility that there might be something inside the temple. Like, they've always just assumed that this was something devoid of... Life isn't really exactly the word that they're thinking, but, like, devoid of
Presence?
Presence. And so the fact that there's something there to respond to the raven's knock, that upsets them more than the scream did, and I think that's what causes them to light their lantern again. But the question that I have is, are the birds still there when they light their lantern again?
There's one. The one that knocked. And it's looking right at them.
How many eyes?
2.
Okay.
It's got one broken wing.
Does it look like it's in pain at all?
No. And I think it tilts its head a little bit too far for comfort.
Mm-hmm.
It goes like a little bit too far.
Mm-hmm.
And then it tilts back up, nods, and even though it's only got one working wing, it flies away.
Yep, I think that's a revulsion scene.
Yeah, I don't blame them. I think the key is, and this might just be for you, so you can decide whether or not you want to keep this, or, like, I'm saying this for your sake, not for the audience's sake. I think the key is that the real warning that Zephyr was trying to make was, there is nothing that will help you here.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, now's not the time. What was the scream? I don't know. Some things even I don't have the answer to.
Yeah.
Okay. 1 point of favor, 1 point of revulsion.
Yep. Hi, it's August, and I just wanted to thank you for listening. If you've enjoyed us, please consider leaving a rating on your podcast platform of choice, telling your friends about us, or tweeting about us using the FTLcast hashtag. We are also part of a nonprofit podcasting guild called Standing Stones Productions. We do a variety of shows, including The Room Where It Happened and Dumb Kids Playing Hero, 2 actual play shows, and a Steven Universe discussion podcast called Gay Space Rocks. We also do live streams at twitch.tv/standingstonesprod. You can keep up with everything that we do on Twitter at stones_standing. Unfortunately, Standing Stones was already taken. Your support means a lot. Thanks again!